All right, this is part 3 on the first Alcibiades of Plato's dialogues. And it's an interesting thing. He brings up to Alcibiades true enemies, true rivals. So Alcibiades claims that he wants to go to the ecclesia, the Athenian sort of democracy, the government. And those are his rivals. He wants to be better than them. He wants to be better at politics than anyone in Athens, so he'll be the best politician in Athens. And Socrates more or less gets him to admit that, none of them are that good of people. And really, Alcibiades, with no schooling, no real training in politics, could probably walk in and be among the highly respected ones, just because he's so beautiful and witty, and he's related to Pericles, and all that. He can walk in. And Socrates says, but you're already better than them. How are you aiming for something you already are? And are they really your rivals? Because if you're in charge of the Athenian government, who's your rival then? Isn't the whole point, if you're in charge of the Athenian government, aren't your real rivals foreign rulers? And Alcibiades says, I suppose you're right. And he says, and are you better? Are you better than the foreign rulers? Have you looked at the king of Sparta or the high king of Persia? And it's interesting. Alcibiades says, these are the things that I'm good, I'm as good as they are, and here's why. And Socrates basically gives him the rundown of, here's the attributes of the high king of Persia, and that's where he gives him the 4 cardinal virtues and things like that. And here's what's going on in Sparta. Do you really think, and he sort of names all of Alcibiades' names and ties and claims to high learning and stuff like that, and they're really pitiful. In comparison. They're not bad, but they're nothing like the high king of Persia's claims to royal descendancy for generations, the best of learning since he was born. All these things. Sparta's super wealthy, all these different things. Alcibiades just kind of meh. And he would just be, he would just be laughed at, or worried about. Socrates even brings up, if the mother of the high king of Persia were told that you wanted to challenge her son, she would probably just be concerned for your own mental state, how you could possibly think to be superior to him, to be able to beat him in anything. And it's this interesting idea Socrates brings up. And he says, you don't want to be better than the Athenian government. You already are. And even if you weren't, once you became so, they're not the ones you have to worry about. You have to worry about these other, much bigger, much more important things. And it's an interesting discussion, just to, when we ask ourselves, what are the things, what's important? What's it important for us to improve in? What are the parts of our lives that we need to focus on and things like that? I don't think it's bad advice that Socrates gives here. Who are your true enemies? Who are your true rivals? Not just who is close to you, and just, obviously you could compare yourself to them all day, and you could probably convince yourself you're better than them. It's not hard to convince yourself that you're better than you are. But who are you really, in ultimate reality? Who do you have to beat? And this is the discussion that the Christians, in the early church, they go from there. They go, it's the enemy, the evil one. And they break, the evil one being, the lures of the world, the fallen creation around them, the actual demons trying to tempt them, and really ultimately themselves. Their own insecurities, their own inability to choose the good, their own ignorance of what's right, their own weakness, their own lack of self-control and things like that, their own deficiencies in the 4 cardinal virtues. Those are the real enemies. One of the Psalms that they often recite says, If it were an enemy who besieged me, I could handle that. But it's not. It's you, my bosom friend, my closest companion. You are the one attacking me. And the way they read that psalm in the early church in Egypt, in the monasteries, was that was the soul and the body talking, in a sense. The one person is saying, I can fight against someone who's trying to tell me to do bad things. If one of my brother monks comes in a moment of weakness and tells me to do something bad, or even if the devils come in and tell me, or if there's something attractive in the world, I can say no to that. What I have a problem saying no to is my true enemy, myself, my own weakness. And I think that's profound. And it's not, it's not particular only to the early church, and it's not particular only to Christians. Many cultures are this is something they've really discovered, as humans, we've gotten this. Our true enemy is ourselves. We are the one who holds ourselves back from greatness, true excellence of person, excellence in morals, excellence in learning, excellence in physical excellence. Like, we are the standard that we have to overcome, is ourselves first. Because if we can't conquer ourselves, who do we hope to conquer? I mean, you conquer an enemy by knowing them and being able to counter them and respond to them and react well and preempt what they're going to do so you can strike. Who do you know better than yourself? But also, do you know yourself? Socrates goes on, he says, the great oracle, the Oracle of Delphi, has printed, Gnothis Sauton, know thyself. Do you? If you did, in what way would your life be different? And what would someone who did know themselves, in what ways would they be better? If you really knew and took time to think, who am I and how am I and what are my desires and wants and weaknesses and all of these things, what might that change? I think of all the things in the first Alcibiades, I think this is the first time Socrates really says something that is so wildly profound that it could never be exhausted. The teachers thing, we can think about teachers. Even the four cardinal virtues, you can understand them pretty well. Know thyself and your true enemies. What are the real things that actually hold you back and actually cause you to be worse than you ought to be? I mean, advice could stop there almost and be almost sufficient. It did at the Delphic Oracle. There are only two admonitions by the Delphic Oracle: know thyself, nothing in excess. And that handled almost everything. Yeah, it's good. Someone once wrote, and I forget who it is, and I always forget all these authors. The real decline in humanity came from the fact that we are not willing or not able to spend an hour alone with ourselves. We don't know ourselves. We haven't for a long time. And I certainly wouldn't claim to know myself in anywhere close to the degree that, one, that I ought to, and two, that Socrates did. Or any of these great figures. Who is your true enemy? And know yourself. I don't know if there's much I can add to that. So I'll stop talking. Thanks so much for joining me in this series on Plato's Dialogues. If you'd like to see the previous video in the series, click up here. If you want to see the next video in this series, click over there. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and click subscribe.